Then we have Mr. V. Muhammad Ali. He is a COO Forum Malls Prestige Group. He has been with the group for 18 years and was a part who made the first Forum Koramangalam Bangalore in 2004. Welcome on board, sir. It's a pleasure having you amongst us.
Thank you.
Of course, now we have the Guru who is here to give us his mantra, Mr. Rakesh Biani. I think we all know him. Sir, giving your introduction will be like giving an introduction to Amitabh Bachchan in the retail industry. So welcome aboard, sir. It's a pleasure having you amongst us. And of course, the moderator for the evening is Mr. Sanjay Chawla. He happens to be our editor-publisher, who is also an engineer, a textile engineer from TIT Bhiwani. And we have our company as DFU Publications, which is a 30-year-old B2B fashion retail space magazine. So, Mr. Sanjay Chawla, welcome, and you being the moderator, you would take it forward. Nonetheless, my last person who I need to introduce is Mr. Salil Chawla. He is the director of the company. He is I think he knows the industry like the back of his hand also. He's extremely good at that. So welcome, sir. Welcome all of you. And I hope we'll have a very, very fruitful evening today listening to all of you. It'll be our pleasure. Thank you.
Good afternoon. DFU Live presents webinar number 4. The topic is Up Against the Retail Rentals. I'd like to give some background on the issue. According to Confederation of All India Traders, the country's retail sector comprises of 70 million small, medium and big traders and employing around 450 million people, is one of the hardest hit due to COVID-19 pandemic. The industry registers a monthly business of about 70 billion USD. Hello. Yeah. Ever since the government announced a prolonged lockdown, retail brands with zero revenue have been struggling to find a way to sustain, to stay afloat, and to get cash flows. Retail has been among the first industries to be hit by COVID-19, and the near future also remains uncertain, as experts claim that this slump will last for at least 2 quarters. As we all know, typically rent is one of the retailer's biggest expense items. Stores operating in malls have faced zero income for over 2 months now. The consequences of still having to pay rent on a location that is not in business, retailers are left wondering, do we still have to pay? Furthermore, even the opening of the shopping malls, the industry will witness the beginning of a new world where consumption will not be the same as it had been prior to pandemic. Brands and retailers approached malls and proposed a red, orange, green approach, whereas red is lockdown period, in which proposal is a complete waiver of rent and CAM charges, common area maintenance charges, and cancellation of invoices that have been raised. Orange is for the period post-lockdown when business is below normal, a variable model wherein rent plus CAMs is based on the trading density of the mall. Green is the period when business gets back to normal as soon as the trading density of entire mall sustainably touches 100% of last year levels. Rent plus CAM terms will switch back to pre-COVID terms. These are the propositions with which brands and retailers have approached malls. While the situation is critical on both the sides, retailers as well as mall owners, retailers and mall owners are currently engaged on this issue. Regretfully, in most of the cases, the two sides are yet to find a common background on the issue of rental waivers or post-lockdown applicable rental terms. I will start with Mr. Rajesh Jain. And my question to all the speakers who have to speak on brand and retail perspective would be, what is the situation they are facing as of now in regards to their discussions with the malls in the rental for the rental parameters? Mr.
Sure.
Rajesh Jain. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanjay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
So before I start, I would just like to set a little context here that what are the other problems or all the problems that retailers are facing and would be facing in the next 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months is the period that I personally foresee will take to recover and get back to the stabilization period. And I'm not talking about growth. I'm merely talking about the stabilization. Once everything reopens in the country, it will take another 6 to 9 months to reopen. Now, if we see the retail per se, daily business, we earn every day by selling the goods. And then because of that earning, we are able to take care of all our overheads on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, and those kind of things. However, what has happened is since lockdown sometime in the middle of March, that complete revenue has gone away. And in the next 6 to 9 months, we don't foresee a major recovery or even a decent percentage of what we achieved last year. And that puts us in a great troublesome period. Now, if I see at retail, there are three major components of cost. One is cost of goods sold, and that has direct relation to the inventory available in the store. Now, on one hand, the retailers have to ensure that whenever the reopening takes place, the customers walk in and they see the fresh merchandise in decent numbers and decent options. And on the other hand, the retailers have to maintain a fine balance to ensure that they don't end up locking up too much of money into that inventory because there is so much of uncertainty. Now, this we can equate. How we handled it, that we tried to fish out our data post recession in 2008, 2009, and post demonetization, because both of these events threw retail out of gear. And we tried to see that what happened immediately after these events and try to again project because of those what will happen in 1 year from now. That is not a good number. But at the same time, in this scenario, there is an added problem of scare amongst the customer. In earlier two occasions, the customers were still walking in, the stores were still open, some sale were still happening. But this time, the sale will not happen and the customers are not likely to walk in a hurry because of the added element of fear. Because of that, our projections are for physical stores specifically are very low. Because of this, rental, which is already a very high percentage of our sales, has become one of the biggest element as percentage to sale. And that is where we are looking for support from mall developers, from landlords in high streets, etc. I will come back to this rental part just to inform the third part, which is the personnel cost. I think there is not even a single retailer in the country who is not taking a pay cut, and in some cases, job losses also. My personal view is that pay cuts are better than job losses. And I think most retailers are trying to manage with that unless and until it is absolutely necessary to resort to job losses also. Coming back to the biggest cost element today, which is rental to revenue share. This is becoming the most important and the most troublesome factor for all the retailers. Here, what we are doing is we are reaching out to all the mall developers and high street landlords also, collectively also and individually also. We're reaching out, we are appealing to them to support us. I personally believe that mall developers and retailers are two sides of the same coin. Retail cannot survive or cannot grow unless there are sufficient good, decent malls. And malls can just not survive if there are no retailers. So my personal view is that both of them are, they make the complete retail scenario as far as physical retail goes. Online retail, on the other hand, is doing wonderfully well. Whatever online retail has opened for us, that is doing decent numbers. But obviously, that cannot compensate for the entire sale, because online retailer, end of the day, is only about 10 to 12% of retail sale for most of the retailers. Here, our experience has been that when we reach out to the developers, they are collaborative. They do want to talk to us, but in some places we have been able to reach out to some amicable resolution also, and in some places it is yet to take place. And we do hope that the developers will give us that relief, so that both the sides of the coin can move together.
Thank you, Rajesh. Shabani, Mr. Sanjay Vakharia can you introduce?
Oh, yes, it'll be a pleasure. Mr. Vakharia, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I guess there was some network issues, so he had to overcome that. So just introducing Mr. Vakharia. Mr. Vakharia, he is the CEO and director of Spiker Lifestyle Private Limited. He was a part of the team who founded Spiker in 1992. And before that, he worked with Magna Publishing. And of course, as we all know, he set up the jeanswear brand Rags in 90s. He's played a pivotal role in bringing into Spiker what it is today in the industry. Welcome, sir. It's nice to have you amongst us, and it's a pleasure. Can you hear us?
Stuti, can you play?
Yeah, sure, Bunny. I'm so sorry.
No, that's
there were
okay.
some issues on the network.
That's okay. Stuti, can you please play the AVs for Siaram and Killer, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Small AVs, please. Thank you.
Chased every dream, weather the storm. I know that this road will lead me home. I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming, I'm coming home.
Killer G.
Hello. Yeah, taking ahead from Rajesh, I like to talk to Manish Kapoor. Pepe is a global multinational brand. How is this situation being addressed in other countries related to malls versus brands? Can you please throw a light on this?
If I look at, if I look at COVID, it's a global phenomenon and it's hit across industries, across geographies. I think how things have happened globally is very, very different from India. So if I look at a typical retail scenario from a retailer's perspective, there have been support from the governments globally in terms of wage support for the people. And that's across, in terms of levels. There has also been support in terms of governments providing loans at a cheaper rate, government-backed guarantees. And then if I look at the landlords also, there have been cooperative in terms of looking at long-term reductions on rentals, what we are calling as mega deals. globally, as in if you look at as in 4 big geographies that we operate in: Spain, Germany, France, and Italy. Most of the developers and landlords, as in if I look at it, we are almost a 60-40 split there in terms of high street to malls. But most of the landlords and developers there have been cooperative in terms of looking at the current scenario and giving those sort of long-term waivers, whether it is related to the lockdown period or period going forward. Again, we are hopeful, as in considering as in our country and we as Indians being always being optimistic, that we are saying that probably we'll be able to recover in 6-9 months. Europe is looking at recovery periods of anywhere between 12 to 18 to 24 months. But if I look at the scenario there, the support for the retailer or the brand from each of those aspects, whether it is the government or it is the developer or it is the financial institutions, is much more and very, very different from what we have seen in India so far.
Okay, and where does PayPay stand in India in terms of discussions with the malls and your high street stores?
So if I look at it, we are almost 240 odd stores. We have 100 odd stores in high streets and the balance in malls. Of the places that have been allowed to open in terms of high streets, we have opened 62 odd stores. Most of the high street landlords have been very, very cooperative. The mall discussions have been on, and they've taken up a lot of speed during the last 4-5 days. We have been able to conclude a few of them, but other places, they are still on. And I think I think it's not of us as retailers or brands being up against retail rentals. I think what we are looking at is a scenario of shared pain. So during the good times, we've shared profits, we've shared good times. This is a time wherein we need to share the pain. And there the difference comes in again. So if you look at it, it's not only the occupancy cost is a big proportion of our sales, and it's not only about the rental. So we are also looking at something like CAM, which is a fixed cost and which is something both the mall guys and us agree, which is not going to go off. So while we'll be able to do something on the rental, once you start operating, CAM is going to remain, and it's almost 20-25% of the occupancy cost for us vanilla retailers. So we'll have to get through this. We'll have to have an approach wherein we have to say that we have to share this pain. The proportion can be different in terms of the quantum of support and also in terms of how we pan it out, because it's also a question of liquidity. It's not something that we are talking, it's only a P&L thing. It's a question of survival for all of us today. So we'll have to get through this together. And I think that sense is prevailing somewhere. It's not completely synced in at some places. So probably it's going to take some more time. But I think we are in the right direction in at least acknowledging the fact that there is pain.
Okay. Thank you. I'll come to Mr. Sanjay Vakharia. At Spiker, can you kindly explain the situation in regards to the status of your discussions with the various mall managements? And what are your expectations? Can you throw a light on this, Sanjay?
So I think it's not too different from the rest of the panelists, whatever they have spoken. Basically, the point over here is that we don't think that there's going to be a win-win between all of us. It's got to be little lose for everybody. So the situation that we all are facing currently is not a situation that anybody of us are feeling welcome about. And we do understand that the pain is just similar even with the mall owners as well. But somewhere I feel that we need to kind of keep in mind that the fact that this industry, especially ours, has a very long tail. Yeah. And also we have some serious issues with respect to inventory and also supply chain coming ahead. So from all of these aspects, we really don't think that good times are going to be there so soon. And assuming to have a presumption that probably by the end of August or September we may be back to normal would be a little too optimistic. So we've been speaking to the relevant landlords and mall owners, and I would say that similar to what Manish said, that we had relatively much better sense and cooperation and consideration from the high street landlords versus the mall owners. We are hoping that all of it will work out at the end of the day, and because so finally we are all battling the same enemy, and all of us also have a similar goal of getting the customers into the stores and into the malls. So from that perspective, none of us are on opposite sides of the table. We are all on the same side of the table, and I'm sure that eventually there would be a mutual ground and a common ground which we will all find and work within. So yeah, we've been pretty okay as far as high streets are concerned. As I said, the challenge is there on the mall side, and we are hoping to kind of come to a mutual understanding out there.
Rightly said. We have to be prepared for lose-lose situations.
Little lose, not lose.
Situation. As much damage we can save ourselves from.
Yeah.
I'll talk to Mr. Kavindra Mishra because as a head of House of Anita Dongre, as I understand, there are multiple retail brands. I'd like to know, how are you dealing with the individual discussions with the malls and street? And what are your expectations? And what solutions do you propose for the situation ahead? Mr. Kavindra Mishra.
Yeah, thanks for asking this question. Now, see, if you look at it, I think what Sanjay has mentioned, or what Rajesh was mentioning, or what Manish mentioned, I think all of us are in a similar kind of a boat. We have close to 300 stores, and out of which 1/3 are in high streets. And in high streets, I think, except maybe 5 or 10, we have opened everything else. So we have spoken to our partners, and we have been able to convince them on the right way, and they understand the logic, and obviously it has worked out well for us in case of high streets. In case of malls, as both of them have mentioned, we are speaking to them and talking about it. See, also, I think it's somewhere we have to, so Sanjay talked about lose-lose, Manish talked about win-win. I think everything is relative, right? In life, in today's scenario where everybody is struggling, we have to go back to the philosophy that, in a fair deal, everybody has to win, because everything is relative. So in a fair deal, none of the partners can feel that, no, this is something which is, I would be able to crack this better. No, because this game of one-upmanship, whether it is from the brand side or from the mall side, is not going to work. So I think we are having our discussions with all the partners here, और वो हो जाएगा, because I think finally at the end of the day, what is fair and what is logical will happen. We cannot expect something illogical from the malls, and similarly malls will also have to work along with the brands, because the numbers are there to be seen with everyone. Once the stores will open and we'll all see the way things are, and this is, all of us are assuming that this is only the first wave of the thing. A lot of people are also talking about the second wave of a lot of countries where the COVID has died, actually have seen the second wave of virus also coming. So how we can link our business and the commercial conditions with the sale actually is for us a very fair way of looking at things. But yes, it's a point of something which we are discussing right now. Also, I think all of us will see, and it is something which is true for the brands. It will be true for the malls also, because the consumer will change. The consumer is changing. A lot of times, I think someone mentioned that 10-12% of business is happening through online. All that is true, but my sense is that with this happening, you will find that serious consumer who used to buy full price from stores will also start experiencing now. Will also start now buying full price from the online channel. So it's very, very important that we don't keep as brands, we keep the balance, and as a channel, the malls also keep that balance, because it's not only about getting the customer back or starting. It's about what is the malls and us going to do together in that space to ensure that the experience of somebody visiting the malls becomes more powerful than the convenience and safety which a customer is going to experience through online shopping. So I think there are a lot of more challenges for all of us, and the sooner we are able to pass on, close this rental discussions and focus on business, the better is it for all of us, because closing the rental discussion and starting the stores is only the first bit. Usse kuch bhi nahi hoga, right? At the end of the day, we say, at the end of the day, it's for mall guys and for the brand guys. If there's revenue, would there be any other cost associated with that? So I think a lot of that has to be focused now, because the battle is much bigger. Battle is to how to get that consumer in the store, in the mall, and start shopping. So I think if all of us believe in the philosophy that's Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina, that everybody has to win, that there has to be no loser, everybody has to be happy, I think that's the only way this will work out. And as I said, it's relative, but that is the only way for all of us, because the rental discussion is only the first battle. There are so many other things. For example, let's assume that we talk about 15% rental or whatever we guys agree on. But if the sales doesn't happen, then it's of no relevance to anybody. So I think the major part of discussion which all of us need to focus quickly is how to bring the customer confidence back. I think that will become more important than this. This is important right now, but there are so many other challenges for us as a brand and as small guys, which is far bigger than only the rental discussion. So these are my opening thoughts.
Yeah, I believe I understand that you are saying that this is just a beginning and it is the first challenge, though we have to meet more challenges. And at the same time, you are quite positive that probably it will be a fair deal as we move forward with the malls and the brands and retailers. Now, I'd like to talk to Mr. Sanjeev Rao. As our understanding, Raymond Apparel being a part of Raymond Group, how the group manages its business with malls and high street? Is it handled as a central group activity, or Raymond Apparel is being managed by apparel division separately? That is first question. The second is, can you update us about your discussions? Because with such a large volume of retail business, how is Raymond dealing with the individual discussions with malls and high street? Mr. Sanjeev Rao. Mr. Sanjeev Rao. Stuti, can you unmute him? Can you unmute Mr. Sanjeev Rao? Stuti.
I have asked him to unmute, sir. I can ask him. And
yeah. Am I audible now?
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you for that, for asking me to join
Mr.
here today.
Sanjeev Rao.
Yes, please. Am I audible now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes. So answering your first question, we have a very large footprint of stores across India, and these stores are all in very different formats. They are different formats. However, me and my team, we look after the entire group's portfolio, and in this portfolio, we have of course, our franchisee network of the Raymond Shop, which is completely a franchisee-owned, franchisee-operated network. That's roughly about 1,000 stores. That is run separately. Rest, other than that, any company leased and franchisee-operated stores and the COCO stores are all managed by me and my team across the brands in Raymond Apparel Limited also, as well as the TRS also. The Raymond Shop also has COCO stores. So all in all, they are roughly, if I add everything, it comes to about 500 stores. 480 to 500 stores is what we are talking about. And so looking at what's been happening in the market, I would again same thoughts that the other panelists have said. There has been a very good response that we have received from the high street landlords, and the fact is that with malls, I will not say that we have not had success. Of course, there are standalone malls who have given us the support to move forward. However, a large part of the malls, the discussion is still on. And for us, it's a very uphill task because, the kind of spread that we have across India, it is, we are into tier 4, 5, and 6. So to get to landlords there to speak, I was so happy that, the landlords who have called up from small places, which has got not more than 1 lakh square feet of 1 lakh population. And they have actually called up and said that, we understand what pain you all are going through. Please don't worry. We are standing here. So from that point of view, from a high street, we have got a fantastic response. Raymond has got a fantastic response. However, mall is yet to be seen because our view is that, as all the panelists have said, it has to be a win-win on both the sides. they can't survive without us, we can't survive without them. But somewhere this discussion has to come to a close very quickly, because as Kavinder was just saying, that there's so much more that lies ahead of us. There's so much more that still we need to do to keep the customer coming back and being relevant to the customer coming back to brick and mortar retail. That task is, I presume, way bigger than what we are going through right now in the rental discussion.
Thank you. I'd like to talk to Mr. Manoj Agarwal. Manojji, as the senior most amongst us in the panel, in retail business with Mohanlal Sons for 2 to 3 generations, you are dealing with the subject practically from all the fronts, as a retailer in the mall, as a retailer on the high street, as well as you are also a landlord on the high street. So we'd like to know what is the status of discussions you are having with the various stakeholders, and how have you dealt with the situation so far being a landlord? Manojji. Stuti, please unmute this here. Manojji, you'll have to unmute yourself. Manojji, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. I've done it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, everyone. Okay, now we are into business since 1881 in the same family, and I'm supposedly 5th generation in the business. Now the thing is that, of course, we are on high street also, and majorly now into malls. High streets, like everybody is saying, they've been extremely helpful. They understand the pain. They've exactly whatever we had asked them, they've given us absolutely without any discussion on it, that they want us to survive. They want us to not leave, and they want us to continue there. And they understand the pain. And all the high street, they immediately said, we are fine with it. Absolutely. You should not even think of closing down or leaving. So continue, and we are there till things get normal, and things will be kept on reviewing, and we'll keep on reviewing, and it will be done to your this thing till things get normal. So, but of course, the difficult part is to get things from the malls. So we are requesting them, and of course there is a lot of big guns here who are definitely will be very well heard by the malls, I suppose. We are a very small fry in front of all of them. But still, I think the malls need to understand the pain. After all, we as SME, we come into that category. So the government has talked so many things, that 20 lakh crores, this, that, but nothing has come to us. No bank finance has come to us. No reduction of interest has come to us. Not even that 20% increase of limits have come to us. It's all in there. So there is no help from any financial institution. So if that is the case, so see, it is very difficult for us to survive. We'll have to see places where the malls are not going to understand the pain, or malls are not going to really come up to help us out, because we are partners, very well said, like somebody, that when good times also, we were contributing in whatever best possible manner. But in the bad times, which is not a small time, it is going to be a long lived period now. It is not going to be something that is going to change from September, October, November. I think we'll have to write off this 2021 completely. And if the malls, they have to understand the problem. They have to. The only way for an SME like us to survive is on a revenue share business, because I don't think a rental will survive and make us, because, I'll tell you, high street like Connaught Place, we have our flagship store in CP. Now we opened that on the 1st of June, and it was mid-May actually, alternate days and then full time. So you will not be, but it is just 5% of the business, 5 to 10% of the walk-ins. We used to get 100 to 200 walk-ins a day on any day, and now we are getting just 5 people a day to come and see in Connaught Place. I'm talking about CP, which is supposed to be the biggest high street, in the country. So things are going to be extremely bad. Actually, opening the store is much more costlier than closing it. But then you can't do that because the market has to open and we have to be a part of it. So if people like us have to survive, the malls have to really come up as big brothers, help us out in this very difficult time, and give us breathing the oxygen that we require to come up and stay, and breathe and come out of this problem.
Thank you, Manojji. Thanks a lot for being very elaborate and putting the facts on the table. Now we have heard out all the 6 panelists who have been speaking on brand and retail from the brand and retail perspective. Few things are coming quite clear. Most of them have been getting very good response from the high street, and they all are talking about discussions going on with the malls, which I presume most of these discussions are not on collective level. These are on individual level. So I like to now know from our panelists who represent mall side, their perspective. We would like to know from there. First of all, I'd like to know from Ms. Binu Sehgal. You are now a part of Freeport Brands. Please explain your company's activities in real estate business. And also, as you have heard out the situation from all these speakers, it is very important to understand your response and point of view from the mall's point of view.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Sanjay, and thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah.
The thing is, first, let me tell you about Freeport. Freeport is a UK-based mall management company, which runs around 20 malls in Europe and all over the world. We represent India, and we are setting up outlet malls in India. So at the moment, we are signing up build-to-suit deals. So that makes me also wear both the hats, which is the master lessee for the developer with whom I will be signing up a MG. So I become his master lessee, and then I will be subleasing his property to the other retailers, and that makes me the developer as well. So it is not that the pain is not heard, and I've been, listening very patiently, and also we feel the pain. It is not that developers are not feeling the pain, but who will listen to the developers' pain as well? Because the situation, it is nobody's the villain here. I feel it is the situation who is the villain. What happens is whenever googly is thrown on you, you rely on your experiences. उस समय हुआ था 2008 में हुआ था, we did this. इस समय हुआ था, we did that. So this pandemic has thrown us in a situation where we have no experiences to fall back upon and gain knowledge from there that this is the way I should have handled this situation. We are in a situation which is new to you, which is new to retailers, which is new to developers. We had never woven this in any of the contracts. We had never woven in any of our financial things. So it is, I'm reminded of George Floyd, which I was talking in the morning, also telling that I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. And there is a pressure on the neck. In the case of retailer, the pressure is malls. And in the case of developers, the pressure is from the retailers. And both of us are kind of, shouting, I can't breathe, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Look at the situation for developers who has a constant outflow. He has paid something to acquire the land. He has built up the shops. He has not made Taj Mahal that generation would follow, come, admire, go back. So this is his livelihood. Like retailers have a product, developer has the product, which are shops. He has to earn out of that. He has to earn a living, make his living out of that shop. And he has to pay the bank. Government has not given any relief to the developers, I feel. And they have to still pay those EMIs. He has to run, and being optimistic, he has to maintain that mall for you to come back and open up and work peacefully there. So he has to keep his security, he has to keep his housekeeping, he has to keep the diesel running, he has to see the mall ops running. So that doesn't mean that you should not get relief. It is not something like that. It is something where a collaboration, I think COVID should also lead to collaborations. Collaborative efforts have to be looked upon. You have to listen to my pain, I have to listen to your pain. So I think mall owners and retailers should sit together. See, what I feel and what I've done with my developer is I sat down with them. We thrashed out. We thrashed out what is your basic. We have to be very, very transparent here. What is your basic outgoing so that the mall developer also doesn't die? I cannot ask you the same rent. So as a developer, you see, मेरा इतना bank outgoing है, इतना है इसके बगैर, I will also not breathe and I will not survive. So maybe this is the minimum rent I would require to survive. So that time the sale price should not be taken into consideration, only the survival. This is now the question of survival, and the survival of the fittest would prevail. And we have to, together we have to. Malls will be empty without retailers, and retailers have to express themselves somewhere. So we have to join hands, collaboratively look at where all our funds should collectively go. And once we are together, then we will build up the confidence of the customer, who will ultimately provide us bread and butter. If we are locked horns with each other and we are not putting efforts there to give that confidence to the customer that they are together in it and they are going to make my mall safe, this is the best place to go with my family to shop, eat, drink, whatever. So this will come when I'm relaxed. कि मेरा को bank will not come on my back, my security will be paid, my operations will be paid, my everything will be paid. So we have to there is no black, there is no white. कोई खलनायक नहीं है यहाँ पे. We have to look for that little gray area. थोड़ा retailers को आगे आना है, थोड़ा सा mall को step back करना है, and we have to put it that. Otherwise, both of us are going to suffer. Nobody else is going to suffer. See, everything online, everything is not online. There's something known as experience also. And what is that online good about when I cannot wear that dress and show it off somewhere? So we are social beings. We have to provide that safe social atmosphere to my customer. And I have to provide good retail when he comes to that property. That good retail will be, you all have to come there. So I have to see that you survive and you have to see that I survive. We both have to, hold each other's hand and say that minimum itna hona chahiye. And I think going forward, it should be woven in the legal contracts also. Should in case there is a pandemic, this is what is expected out of you. This is what should be there. This is the minimum, so that you also in your operational cost, weave that thing in your operational cost, that for 6 months shouldn't, because these are going to come. Now this is a Pandora box which is opened, and I feel we have handled it also. Scare has driven us. So this scare which has instilled now, ye to abhi beej pada hai, ye abhi pad ke paudha ban ke ped banega. So this is our next generation. For everything they will say band karo, band karo, band karo. So this kind of thing we will have to weave in, and we will have to put our efforts into it so that both of us survive. Now Kavindra was saying that everybody has to win. Yes, this is the way forward. Everybody has to win, and there is going to be, as he was saying, there is going to be a second wave. Yes, there is going to be a second wave, and this is the time that we should lay a very good foundation for that second wave. Because if we are not together, if we'll die in the first wave, who is going to survive the second wave? So this is what I was thinking. And with my going forward, all the contracts which I'm doing, I am sitting with the developer, I'm thrashing it out. I'm looking at I am also looking at the developers, how much outgoing he has, and what should be my effort to put that lowest MG there. There will be an MG which will be good times MG, and there will be a MG which will be a pandemic MG. And this is what I have done with my contract, and this I've already done it.
Thank you. Thank you, Benu. We got a good line that don't make villains out of mall developers.
Yeah, we are not villains. We need them. We have made this big structure for them. I go there every day in the morning. Now that I'm not going to the mall, but I used to go only for my retailers. My customers were not my customers. They are my customers.
And you said that we have to weave something in the contract itself, where there is some minimum rental system in such scenario also.
We have to relook, and we have to learn this thing from the first wave itself.
Yeah. So we'd like to take this discussion forward with Mr. Rehan Haq. Rehan, you are now a part of ILC. Please explain your company's activities in real estate business. Also, as you have heard of all the points which brands and retailers have put forward, we would like to know what is your take on that, Mr. Rehan. Rehan, can you hear me, Rehan? Stuti? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah,
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
yeah, please.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon.
Yeah.
So I'm currently working on three. Can you hear me? I'm audible?
Yeah, to me,
Yeah,
yes.
you are audible.
I think, Rehan, I think
Yeah,
you're breaking. You may have to put up a video. Can't hear you well.
Can you hear me now? I'm audible?
Yeah, better. Yes, yes, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I am currently looking at three major retail projects which are upcoming under the ILC group of companies. And I'm also working on a development management firm with three projects in the development management firm, which are undergoing redevelopment and renovation. So I was expecting this session to be a more landlord bashing, but fortunately, all the retailers and our friends here have spoken quite pleasantly and acknowledged that the retailers and the developers go hand in glove, and we all need to collaborate. To begin, I would like to represent the entire fraternity and say that I don't think any developer at this point of time is in a state of denial. No one is in a state of denial. We acknowledge and we understand that there is a pandemic and it's a grave situation, and it is not a good time for any of us. Therefore, the first is that we are not in a state of denial. The other is that the developer, I think, is expecting the retailers to also be reasonable in terms of what they have to demand and what they ask the developer. I mean, off lately, only most of the conversations which I am doing at this point of time, and I'm sure many people in the trade, from the developer side, are also doing, is very unpleasant in terms of the waivers which is being upfront asked and the CAM without any discussion or conversation, and upfront demands which is coming from the retailers, which is not in the spirit of a conversation or in the spirit of partnership. So yes, identifying the problem, and I think going forward, setting course for a 6 to 18 months is universally being spoken about. So instead of addressing the problem of the retailers, just saying that, okay, give me a rental break or give me a revenue share operations indefinitely till we come back to normal or what trading density we were at, I think the conversation should more be skewed towards, as what Kavinder sir also mentioned a while back, that we have to set course for 18 months. We have to understand that what kind of waivers has to be shouldered between the retailers and the developers. What kind of moratorium, if there has to be a moratorium rather than looking at the upfront waiver, because the developers also have their LRD commitments. I sometimes have a feeling that the retailers often look at the developers as the zamindars from the pre-independence period, and they think that we are landlords are often looked at as zamindars. कि आओ भाई तिजोरी खोलो पैसे निकालो तो इतने दिन से जमा कर रहे हो. So unfortunately, it's or fortunately, I mean, we are not in that situation, and things have evolved, and we are in an industry status. Developers are also under a lot of pressure in terms of the LRD commitments, in terms of the bank loans, or in terms of the fund management or agreement which they are under. Therefore, if there is a waiver which is coming into play to understand the cash flow, addressing the cash flow issues which retailers are facing, I think there has to be a moratorium period which has to be built over a period of time. There can be incremental rental towards 1.5, maybe 1.5 years from now, between the 18 to 24 month, where this recovery is also made. And a similar conversation needs to be aggressively put up unanimously as a forum with the fund managers, with the bank, with the government, because they are the ones who are actually putting both of us in pressure, and we are not being adequately represented at the government. So I think, and the last point that I would like to make here is that the retailers also need to put a plan in place. If omni-channel and online e-commerce is going to be the way forward, is going to be a significant contributor, maybe there is a way that the retailers can put forward a plan, a business model where omni-channel comes into play earlier than expected in the malls, there is a contribution from the e-commerce platform or a delivery which is being done from the mall's space, and a certain percentage of the revenue also comes into play to give them a little more comfort going forward. So I think omni-channel business plans, sharing of sales, and of course investing in potential brands. So there are some brands which have been on the fence, sitting on the fence, and really not been doing the trading density. Those brands, of course, need to be candidly called out and said that, listen, these are the brands which are worth investing in the future. And some brands who have been sitting on the fence and they have really been bleeding for the last couple of years, those brands will have to be more candid and upfront agree that they would have to probably make way for new brands to come in. So I think that these are my few thoughts on my 2 cents on the issue at the moment.
Thank you, Rehan. I'd like to talk to Mr. Mukesh Kumar now. Mukesh, you have been long in this business, heading a leading mall company. We'd like to know what are the plans for Infinity Malls, current operations and operational malls and the future projects. But more than that, my question is both the speakers, Binu and Rehan, they have spoken more from the idealistic point of view, what brands are looking at. I would like to know what is the solution and what is the concrete takeaway from the discussion which we are having, the points which brands put forward to. What can we do? What can we have? Your opinion on that?
Thank you very much for the invite. A big hello to all my friends. I think I know most of the people in this panel. And I think we meet twice or thrice, we share a drink. So I'm sure it's not that this end of the world. And let me talk about our own business. We run 2 malls, both are in Mumbai, one at Andheri, one at Malad. One is a neighborhood center, which is around 300,000 square feet, and another one is in Malad, which is like a regional center, 1.2 million square feet. I think we've been very fortunate to have most of our retailers been there for almost day one. 80% of our retailers have been there from day one, whether you talk about Andheri or talk about Malad. We also believe that if the retailers do well, that's a philosophy. I'm not getting to debate whether it is right or wrong. That most of our agreements are mostly on pure rental. We don't have too much of a revenue share component in the agreement at all. And if there's an upside, retailers keep it. If there's a downside, they have to bear it. So that's the way we operate currently. I've heard a lot of panelists today, and I'm pleasantly surprised to hear their viewpoint. And I must agree what they have been saying, that they need support. Malls also has to provide support. They're willing to look at support to the mall as well. What has happened in past 2 months' time, I won't say 2 months, maybe 1.5 months' time, we started talking to people that we have moved on from landlords to developer. Earlier, we were being considered as a lots, that we are lots sitting in a pile of cash. Certainly, we are no more lots now. We are not collecting Lagan. We are collecting the rental, the license fee, amenity fee. Coming back to the issue what retailers are facing, we will have to be in together. It is not that it's one-sided issue. In sale together, if you don't do, you're going to sing together. There are a lot of brands, they only operate from the mall. They don't have anything in the high street. Okay, we have people have made points about high street and mall together, but there are many brands, they prefer to be only in the mall. So it's very important that malls survive first. If malls don't survive, retailers don't survive, those brands at least are only present in the mall. So in fact, rather, we also need support from the retailers to help us survive. Only business we are in currently is collecting rent. There is no other business. There are some malls like ours, we have no other revenue model at all. 95 to 98% of our revenue comes only from the rent. We have no marketing revenue. We have no revenue from the surcharge of time. So, we have only rental. There people talked about that we earn daily and then we spend that money. For us, we have exactly the same business. We earn daily, but rather than spending daily, we spend once in a month. We only a custodian for the mall because most of the money what we earn, it all goes to the bank. If you don't pay to the bank today, tomorrow they'll send you a notice. Currently, we have a moratorium for almost 6 months. That doesn't solve our problem. It increases our cost. Today, we have to pay interest on interest. Most of these malls are built with very huge capital. It's very capital intensive in nature. So what happens? Your repayment period is very, very long. So most of the money what we earn, I think almost 50 to 60% goes only serving the interest. You can imagine the cost that we incur in maintaining the mall and surviving the business. So it's a time that we need to survive together, and we need to. There's no question of making profit. We need to make sure that we survive in the business. We need to coexist. First, to coexist, we need to understand each other's pain. And then I think from day one, everybody has been saying, all developers have been saying that we understand the problem. There's a pain from both the sides, and we need to work on the formula that we share it together. So my 2 cents will be that, let's look at the lockdown period. How do we share the pain? And be beyond lockdown, can we support for a month or two, reducing, giving kind of discount on that? As for the CAM is concerned, CAM is an actual expense. We're still maintaining the mall. We have security, housekeeping, maintaining of the maintenance of the mall. So we need to make sure that, that's something which is reimbursed. And that's not really a kind of any kind of profit model. It's a cost that we incur on behalf of the retailer. And as I said, I'm very happy with the panelists' view that, yes, it's a pain. We need to share it together. Now look at the two more stakeholders that we have. We have, besides retailer and the developer, we also have two more stakeholders for the mall to survive. One is the government. Unfortunately, government has not supported us much, except for giving those, giving us 6 months moratorium. The biggest stakeholder is the consumer. We are forgetting that what is their behavior? That's completely unknown to us as of now. We are consumer ourselves. We know what is our thinking. We need to know the public at large. What are they thinking? Will they come back to the mall? Can you provide a safe environment for them to come back? That's the question we need to ask. And that's the thing we need to work together. Retailers and developers both have to work together to get the customers back. Not only getting customers back. And let you see, once you come to the mall, is the safest place to shop. So they keep coming back to you. The mall what publicity is the best policy that everybody knows. So you need to make sure that we work together on a plan or maybe on a campaign. Or if you can't do that, you can't spend so much money. You need to reach out to people as much as possible and tell them that you're a safe place.
Mukesh, can I ask you, what solution have you offered to your retailers as of now? Have you worked out some plan, or how is it?
I don't want to get into too much detail. My general opinion is that, I talk about the philosophy what company has, that yes, there's a pain from both the sides. So we divided it into various buckets. One is that the lockdown period, one is beyond lockdown period. There are some categories they need more support, than some categories require a little less support. We have put this in different buckets. General opinion is that lockdown, we must be part waiver. Beyond lockdown, maybe a month or two, we need to support them. Maybe up to 3 months, you can support them by reducing the minimum guarantee by some percentage, give them a discount. That's our thought process. But each, we are in touch with most of the retailers and talk with them individually. And I'm sure you'll find a solution for it. I don't see any big difficulty in this because it's a much longer business. The business, we need to be together for a very, very long time. They're long leases. So there are many factors.
So the discussions are going on, or you have prepared some formula for all the retailers?
I gave you a general sense of it, what we are thinking, how we are approaching it. We have reached out to most of we don't want to put everything as across the board. We're reaching out to most of the retailers and we are giving a formula. As I said, it's very simple. That lockdown is one part of it, and beyond lockdown for a couple of months is another part of it. And we need to support the retailers. How much? How to define the support, that we have to work with each other. Support does not mean that in a complete waiver. And a lot of people are trying to define support as we must get a complete waiver, must get a pure revenue share. The support definition has to be very wide, depending on each of the stakeholders, each of the mall, each of the landlord, each of the high state land. There are many factors. Can't be one size fits all.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'll now like to talk to Mr. Ali Muhammad. Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Ali Muhammad. We guess you have already come out with some conducive solution. Please throw light on that. Ali from Forum Malls. Yes.
Yeah. So interesting to hear the versions that I've been listening to, but 3 parts. Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to this in 3 parts. First part is, it is not fair to compare a high street, a space owner or a store owner with a mall owner, because the amount of investment, the amount of risk, and the amount of debt that a high street landowner versus a mall owner put and expect are very, very different. So we are looking at 100 times more investment, 100 times more risk, and then hence they are no. So it's not fair to compare high street guys did this and mall guys did this. So that is one part of it, and the payback periods are different, the risk levels are different. The second part is Prestige Group understand retail. Our promoter started the group from a retail store, from a single store, and went on to become one of the largest developers. So probably we are one of few developers who started off with retail and then moved into forward integrated into real estate development. Now, when this COVID situation happened, so we have 9 malls in South India. We have about 4 million square feet. We have 1,500 stores. So when this COVID situation occurred, I think before anybody could ask, Prestige was the first retailer in the country, maybe for the first mall developer in the country, maybe the first mall developer in the world, I don't know, to announce full rental waiver, 100% rental waiver throughout the lockdown period. This is what we did. And this was announced pan-India. Now, I am a little surprised and a little disappointed with the responses that are coming in, and we have been hearing from many partners. All of them, almost all the panelists, the retailer side are my friends. I know them for decades. Now, what is disappointing is that we are knocking on the wrong door here, because Mukesh did touch upon the stakeholders. So there are 3 stakeholders in our business. Retailers are one. We mall owners are 2. There's a third stakeholder, the most important stakeholder. And I think that is where the solution lies. So instead of we discussing about rent so much, now I'm talking about Prestige. We have waived the rentals during the lockdown period in full. Going forward, post-opening, to talk about rental or talk about a rental arrangement, according to me, is wrong, because the rent is paid by the consumers. So if we work on getting the consumers into the mall and get the business back to the levels that it was, or at least as close as possible to what it was, I think that will change the game, and that is where the solution lies. So I would rather ask those questions or discuss those aspects of business which will bring the consumers back. Now, I'll tell you what malls have done. We all have ourselves an association, so we have upgraded all aspects of the mall business in terms of the material, the machine, the method. We invested more than 50 lakhs per mall in response to the COVID situation. We have upgraded our methodologies, and we have a huge advertising campaign planned, and we have changed the way the malls would operate. We have changed the way the customers will see, and we are communicating that to the customers of what they could expect and how it will be different. Now, we are not seeing much response from retailers to come forward and join us and go back to the consumers, because the consumer might surprise us. I mean, the safety levels that a controlled environment can offer cannot be matched by an high street. That is what we have to understand. That's why it is called a controlled environment, and maybe there is a turning point for the mall industry going forward. So that is what we want the retailers to understand. Now, the subject itself of up against the rentals, sounds like up against the golden goose, or up against the goose that lays the golden egg. Because if we, we have done our bit, and I'm speaking after doing our bit, that we have waived the rental during it has costed us excess of 100 crores. Now, after doing that, if somebody has to, put a gun on my head and say, okay, I will not open, then so be it. Because you have not understood the relationship, and you have not understood the business, my friend. Because you're trying to extract value from me, whereas we have to collectively extract value from the consumers. So hence, let's not get into this discussion. Let's take the positive step forward. Open the stores. I want all 1,700, 1,500 plus stores to open across the country that we have. I think except Chennai, we are opening all 8 malls that we are operating. And they are going live tomorrow. And we have taken front page ads in major news papers, and we have hit the social media as well. So this is what we are saying, that we want to go with a positive note. We want to go with a positive attitude and induce confidence in the consumers in levels of safety, in levels of hygiene. And let's work together and change this whole situation for all of us by attacking the real issue and not fight among ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Ali. It was quite pleasant to hear that you have outrightly given waiver of rental during lockdown period. Second most important point, you have brought in the game a third stakeholder, the consumer. So perhaps our retail friends, our brand friends would be happy if the same amount of consumer is not turning up to the stores, probably will be open up to understand their equation. So now is the time. We have heard both sides of the perspective of both sides of the coin. We have heard to all the brands and retailers. We had very eminent and very esteemed panel of brands and retailers. At the same time, we had a very good panel on the mall's perspective also. So I'll now like to go to Mr. Rakesh Biani, who himself is not only the leading retailer with multiple formats, he has been also spearheading the representation to the malls. He is also president CMAI. I would request him to suggest the best possible solution where both the parties are, or I must say, all the three parties are the stakeholders. The possible solution in this situation that does not restrict the growth of retail business, but rather that becomes a benchmarking or springboard for the growth of retail business. Rakesh, please, for Guru Mantra.
Good evening, everyone. I think this is one of the most difficult negotiations that one can ever do, and I think the reality of our life is that we have a situation which is completely out of control on for retailers, for mall owners, and for everybody. There has been a lockdown. Revenues have become zero, and that's the revenues that the brands have not generated, retailers have not generated. Correspondingly, there's a revenue shortfall across the board. And this is a phenomena which has happened all over the world, right? I think it's been a little disappointing because it's not just the malls or the high street or retail where the rent is a problem. The rent is a problem in many other businesses in this country. Wholesale businesses are also based on rental shops. They are suffering. They have a challenge. There is a problem across some of the factories have a problem. Warehouses have a problem. So this is there's a big challenge everywhere in India. This is a challenge which was there across the world. It's not that this is a very India-specific situation. Rent is a very huge challenge across the world, and across the world we've seen various steps taken by various governments to intervene. UK, Spain, Germany, each one of them, as part of their COVID fighting laws, legislations have come in, which not only protect landlords, but it also protects tenants, so that there is a continuity of business, there's continuity of jobs. This is what has happened everywhere in the world. It's been unfortunate that in our country, we've not had any such support from the government. None of these laws are addressing the commercial part, which is the negotiation that happens between the landlord and a tenant. What they do is to just protect continuity of business. They protect continuity of jobs, which is what these laws really are all about. In fact, the UK is in the process of releasing certain principal guidance now, which will get released tomorrow, which defines as to how negotiations should happen between a landlord and a tenant in terms of how to tackle the lockdown period, because rents have not got paid even there, despite the companies and all those values which exist out there also. Less than 50% of the rents have been paid in the UK for the lockdown period. In New York, the largest property developer has received less than 20% of the rent from there. And these are very evolved parts of the world where interest costs are lower, etc. I think the malls definitely have a challenge. They have running costs. There are costs related to. They have financial obligations to bank. There's no question about it. LRDs are there, and this is something that. So is the problem. Same problem exists for majority of the businesses. They are also sitting on interest costs. I think we heard last week Supreme Court really questioning the whole idea about why should there be an interest for the lockdown period, and has actually issued a notice to the government seeking their input as to why there should be an interest for the lockdown period. The same could be a question tomorrow to the landlord. Why should there be a rent for a lockdown period? Now, I don't know, but there is a challenge on hand. I think the reality of life is the fact that the customer is far more important. We all recognize the problem. I think the malls recognize the problem. I think the retailers recognize the problem. We recognized it. We tried to come together earlier, try to kind of find an answer, saying that what could be done together? How could we collaborate between malls and retailers so that we can create a framework which sort of created an entire focus on, as and when the lockdown gets lifted, how we could sort of focus on really bringing the customer back into the malls. So here we are spending so much time a day before the malls are going to be allowed to be opened, thinking about what should we be doing on rent, thinking about what should we be doing on the camp charges, rather than anybody really spending any time to say, will the customer really come tomorrow to the malls? Will he be there? Will he really come and shop? What do we need to do to create comfort among him? None of this has happened, but this is the way we do business. Everybody wants to leave it to the last, except for Forum. So we must acknowledge what the Forum Group has done. I strongly believe, Ali, that all the retailers really appreciate the effort done by the Forum Group. All retailers will definitely open up their stores at the Forum Prestige malls across the country. I think you being a retailer made a big difference, without a doubt. Only if that kind of a model could be followed, all of us could have spent the entire afternoon today discussing what do we do to get the customers back to the malls, rather than spending so much time discussing the rent and camp charges.
Absolutely.
Fact is, there's a loss in the industry. The whole retail industry is at a loss. We have all lost money, and it's all about sharing the loss among ourselves. This is what needs to be done now. There is nobody who can gain out of this. It's fundamental that if there's a cost to run the mall during the lockdown period, so was the cost to run a retailer's office. So was the cost to ensure the fact that all the manpower that exists at the retailer's end. Retailers have also had lost a lot of money. In fact, the survival of the retailer himself is a challenge. So if I had to be given a task as to how do you sort of resolve it, I think the bigger focus needs to be in terms of how does both the retailer and the mall survive through this period. How do we sort of really work collaboratively to bring in the customer back into the stores? And at the same point of time, when we look at the losses that we have all incurred in the last 3 months, how do we sort of over a period of time really collate our profits together and share it back among each other, so that none of us really lose that much money, because even the malls deserve to really get some money back as and when we make some more profits in the future, and they should get some money back for the lockdown period. At the same point of time, clearly none of the brands and the retailers are in a position to today pay for the lockdown period. That's a reality. Because if they start paying rents today, if they start paying camp charges today, because the cash has all disappeared, there's so much more work to be done. The losses on inventory is going to be massive. And to bring in new set of inventory itself is going to be very challenging, because the factories have remained shut. The entire supply chain has got disrupted. This problem is not getting solved in the next 2 months, 3 months. This problem is going to be here till March, maybe April. And there's nothing to do with COVID. Even if COVID disappears out of our life, I think the people who run apparel business specifically, I can say that everybody recognizes there's a supply chain timing effect which comes into our lives. And that is not going to get solved in 2 months. It is going to take about 5-6 months before you will come back to track. So as far as I think, more or less the entire autumn-winter season, to a very large extent, the supply chain is going to be disrupted, which means the fact that business, even if COVID goes out of our life, business may not be at the same level as we want it to be there at a later date. So, but of course, the first priority is to create comfort around customers, convince him that, malls is the right destination to come in. Malls will be the place where you will feel safer. From whatever little one has seen in terms of wherever high streets have opened, and high streets have opened from 17th, 18th of May onwards, it's very encouraging. It's very small towns. Very clearly, the business has been much better there because the fear of the virus is significantly lower. But in the larger towns, there is a struggle because public transport doesn't exist, and movement of people has continued to remain restricted, and that's the way it is going to be for some more time. So we are going to have a challenge. The malls will not be having the same destination feel that one had in the past. It will take some time before them to become the same destination as they were there before, in sometime in February. So this is a journey which requires collaboration, which requires sharing of pain, and then in the spirit of partnership, I think we have to create a framework where, as and when you earn more money in the future, as and when the market sort of recovers fully, we all can share it together. But I think the other thing, all of us have to recognize something which has never happened in our working life, right? None of us actually have any experience in managing recession of the magnitude that we are headed towards, right? None of us have really spent time or understood how to run a business which is going to be sort of degrowing, and degrowing at a very large pace. We don't have any. All of our contracts are designed only for growth. The contract that we have is all about growth. This will grow. We were all very confident, and we've very, very clearly signed such contracts. But that could change, and that could change for if you go by what the RBI ended up discussing, which was minutes which were released on Friday. If that is that's the future that we all have to manage, I think this is not going to get solved in the next 2 to 3 months. Let's become more mature. Let's accept the reality that is in front of us, and let's see how all of our businesses survive together in a collaborative framework. That's what my thought to everybody here is.
Thank you. Rakesh ji firmly puts the point that there is no question that retailer is in position to pay for the lockdown period rentals. That is one thing. Secondly, he says the survival of the retailer itself is a challenge. Third point, he tries to say that we will have to probably collaborate for better times to come for a period of not only 2 to 3 months time, it's much longer drawn battle. Thanks a lot. I think it has been quite an encouraging session. That brings me to talk to Salil Chawla, Director, DFU, to put his closing remarks and extend vote of thanks to all the speakers. Salil. Unmute yourself, Salil. Salil, unmute yourself. Salil, unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Abhinandan and Abhar to the entire trade, all the pundits on the board, especially the viewers who have been supporting us right throughout in all our endeavors, I think after this August gathering, and they have made majestic remarks, and made the things very clear on the two sides of the table, and as some panelists said that we are actually on the same side of the table rather than on the opposite side, So I would like to take it where our esteemed panelists they have left. In the normal course, if the tenant doesn't pay the rent, the landlord would evict the former instantly and replace him at the earliest opportunity. But given the extraordinarily difficult period we are in, if anyone is existing or vacates, perhaps there will be none to replicate or replace. So in the unfolding of these events, industry sanity and co-survival strategy should prevail, I suppose. The semblances, retailers too are looking at an amicable win-win situation to the problem. Endeavor clearly here is not to damage relationship with the landlord or mall owner. After all, they are partners, not adversaries. I'll repeat, after all, they are partners, not adversaries. The disturbing fact, in some senses, malls have somewhere started to communicate one-on-one. So the short message is, both stakeholders will have to work together, find a common solution, a common ground which is workable and which is acceptable to all in the game, both sides. And in the end, I'll of course like to propose the vote of thanks. I would initially say that in all the humility and humbleness, I would hereby take this opportunity to thank all this august panel, which is full of towering personalities, maybe taller than their towering malls, to accept our request to join and address this sticky issue, and that too at such a short notice. Everybody has responded. I'm happy whomsoever we approached. In the same go only, they were kind enough to accept, and they have already expressed their views, very candidly. And also special thanks, my heart goes to trade for consistently supporting us and backing us for entire our initiative, which started around 1.5 months ever since the shutdown or lockdown has continued, has set in. So hope all of us have enjoyed this as much as my team, all of us, we have done, and hope this will make some difference to the trade. And eventually I will say that even this will come over this situation also, nothing is too good to last. Hopefully this pandemic also will have a limited period, and let's hope that shorter or mid-term we'll see the flip side of it. That means the good days will come again. With that, I thank all of you again. God bless you all. Stay safe and healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.